So when your team or your favorite player or you yourself suck at a sport, one of the best things to do is escape into fantasy. From photoelectric football to board games to little plastic helmets and paper triangles, there were very limited options available for taking your love of football off the gridiron. All of that ended with the finger-pinching trackball goodness of Atari Football in 1978, a game that is still as much fun to play today as it was almost 50 years ago. 50 years ago? It's a long time ago. Long time ago. When we got our Atari 2600 in 1980, one of the very first games I begged my parents to get was Atari Football. It's all I wanted for Christmas. I mean, look at this box. Freaking beautiful. You even have a moon transforming into Jupiter for some reason. What the hell's going on there? I couldn't wait to play this game with my dad on Christmas Day, and we popped it in. Oh dear God. Oh dear Lord. I can't even begin to imagine how much my dad spent on this back then. Woo! Well, no matter how it looked, it was the first console football game that hit most living rooms. And I'm not talking about the Magnavox Pong people were going to bring that up, or Bally or whatever. No, it was the cartridge-based whatever. It's not electronic quarterback, which I have. Hang on a sec. Still got it. I'm not talking about handhelds. The release of Atari Football sparked a digital gridiron competition that would last for decades. From Mattel's M Network to Coleco's Super Action Sports, American football games on American consoles would begin to take shape in America. Every new game would add something to the mix, with dramatic cutaways, action cameras, or just running players over with ambulances. Every game moving closer to true simulation football and blurring the lines between reality and fiction. Okay, so due to the ruling of the courts, I am legally bound to talk about Trip Hawkins in every video, so let's get this out of the way. In 1984, Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins was on a quest to bring realistic sport games to computers. On the heels of Dr. J and Larry Bird Go 1-on-1, which was released in '83, Hawkins stormed onto the court and served up another pitch to see if they could hit another homer out of the park. With football.
As a young boy, I dreamed of being a baseball.
Tripp went with signing a relatively unknown Neil's dad impersonator, which will make sense to like 3 people. But also, luckily for EA, turned out to be the previous coach of the Oakland Raiders and NFL commentator for CBS. His name was Johnny McMadden-Skivich III. I think. Oh, otherwise known as John Madden. Mr. Madden's only caveat is that the game had to be 11 on 11, which, seeing the technology at the time, would require 4 years of development to achieve. Again, and fortunately for EA, the industry crashed around this time, which gave their devs a lot of time to dedicate to this task. By the time the game was ready for prime time on the Sega Genesis and Super NES, the industry had bounced back and put a lot more competition into the marketplace. There was not a shortage of football games available during the 16-bit era. The one from Electronic Arts emerged as the crowd favorite and improved on itself year after year. And you want to know why? And that's why I'm here, isn't it? Because coding an 11 on 11 football game at the time was near impossible, EA contracted with Bethesda Softworks. What? To help finish the game. Yeah, absolutely. Bethesda had their own football game at the time called Gridiron. And when they started working on Madden, EA kinda failed to publish new versions of the Gridiron game, which resulted in a lawsuit. For some reason, I can't imagine why EA wouldn't want 2 football games on the market. Nice shop. It'd be a real shame if something were to happen to it. It's actually different. It's like hiring somebody into your shop and then beating them up. In early 1990, EA hired Park Place Productions to develop Madden for the Sega Genesis, who had developed ABC's Monday Night Football in 1989. You're seeing a pattern here? They're bringing in football game developers so they can't work on their own games. And in 1991, they brought DC True Limited, which I could find zero information on, in to develop Madden's second game. And in 1992, they brought in Blue Sky Productions to develop Madden 93. The game would be handed around for the first 5 years of its existence, while EA focused on more important business matters such as circumventing Sega's copy protection code so the company wouldn't have to pay the $8 to $10 license fee per cartridge.
Sega began to hear that we were having some of these conversations. Why would anybody get a license from Sega and overpay for it and be agreeing to a bunch of limitations when they could get a much more open, free license from me that would be actually, in fact, a lot cheaper?
You see, EA had a bunch of different developers creating the first iterations of Madden Football, each iteration improving on the next. Then,
Eddie, sports, it's in the game.
in 1995, it all falls apart. EA is now making millions thanks to the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo consoles. Tripp realizes that the company is paying Nintendo and Sega tremendous amounts of money just to have games on their platforms. So, in 1991, while still at Electronic Arts, he starts up a new company to create a set-top box that would put more money into the publisher's hands. His biggest mistake was while he was out developing this new console, he stepped down as the boss of EA and put his head of sales in charge of the company, who would wind up removing Tripp from the board of his own company, and then put a dagger into the heart of this new console. You and me both, buddy. You and me both.